Hi, this is James Garden, CineTechGeek, and I'm at Sony with Glenn Hill. And Sony this year has launched a very big new initiative, and it's into the world of IP, or video, or moving your video around your infrastructure in IP. And they've got an amazing demonstration here. So Glenn, tell us about how Sony is approaching this new IP world.
We're approaching IP in a couple of different ways, because one of the things that we realize is that there's a lot of confusion over which standard there really is actually going to be. So we had been working on our standard. We realized Evertz was working on standards, and Grass Valley and a number of other companies were working on standards. So the Sony standard, the NMI format, of course, we have that available right now today on our product, but we realized that our customer base needs to be able to integrate with any of these other standards, even in a mixed standard facility. So what we've done is we have an input card on our products that allow us to actually now natively import or export some of these other standards, such as Aspen. So we've committed to actually supporting Aspen natively on a number of our products. So now you can feed an Aspen signal directly on a 10 gig E or a 40 gig E into my production switcher, for example, and that could also be intermingled with Sony's NMI format and maybe some other format. So that card can be field programmable. So in the future, when, for example, on Aspen, when TR-03 is standardized and gets layered on top of that, you'll be able to do a software upgrade very easily in the field. So now that card actually supports that format.
So let's go over that quickly. So I see we've got a big desk in the background, of course, and now you've got the infrastructure here standing next to me. I'll do a cutaway to it. So we've got our traditional SDI cables going into it in certain modules, and we've got other modules, like you said, input and output modules, which you develop as they come to bear. All the standards come to bear, and they're still happening, and you're developing modules for those particular requirements as they're required. So also because for example, you can plug directly into your cameras using an IP protocol.
Correct. All
the data and also the metadata is all coming through that one cable. And also potentially into other vendors, because you're supplying all these other standards,
exactly,
which is fantastic. And it's all sort of working completely synchronously into your switcher, and the switcher doesn't really care what's coming into it. It can work in standard def and high definition all at the same time. Is that how it's going?
Actually, correct. The switcher has the ability to run multiple formats and also multiple protocols at the same time. So as you said, I can have BNC inputs on there for my traditional legacy equipment that is only BNC. I can do quad link if it's a 4K, or if it's just an HE signal, I can bring that on BNC, and I can do an internal conversion if I need to kick it up to HD, or 4K, I'm sorry. So I have that all those abilities to be able to really intermingle all these different signals. On BNC, if I'm feeding 720p or 480i or 1080i, 1080p, the input card has the ability to do a format conversion right on the input. So now my format of the switcher might be, for example, 1080p, but so I don't really care what's coming in. Now everything can be really up converted automatically to
And this is all 1080p. Real time, and you don't use any frames or anything?
Well, you do have some frame delay on format conversions. That's just kind of the nature of format conversions.
That's right.
But it's very, very minimal actually on that. Now on some of the protocol conversions, not necessarily true. So for example, if I'm taking the difference between NMI and Aspen, there's really no hit right now and delay on that. The protocols are so similar that we can do the transition actually relatively quickly, unless you were trying to do something else, like a format conversion on that, which technically could be done. If I was running an HD Aspen facility, for example, I might have still some 480i, 720p, and 1080i even on that Aspen layer that I want to bring into the switcher. I can do a format conversion there. Okay.
So now I like to represent the smaller post-production facilities as well, and we were just speaking before about are we likely to see these new IP basically interfaces, like we have SDI in your grading monitors now? Would we likely see a Ethernet-based input into the monitors in the future for your new X300, for example, for the HD?
We're looking at being able to provide the Ethernet connectivity as close to the equipment as we can. It may be a little separate cigarette-based size box,
a little converter box, for example.
Doing the conversion, or it might be internal to the display. Those are some decisions that actually haven't really been finalized right now.
But that's very much on the way in the next couple of years.
Yes, because one of the other big keys that when we get into an IP infrastructure is we can now actually do what we call distributed routing. So in a traditional facility, we had a big routing switcher in the core of your plant, and all of the signals needed to actually feed that core and then come back out of that core. But now in IP world, we can actually distribute that out. So I can use a common off-the-shelf Cisco switch, for example, in my machine room. I can have another common off-the-shelf switch sitting in maybe my control room, or maybe in another studio. Those are all interconnected by fiber, but to the user, it looks like one big router.
That's right. So realistically, all the advantages of being on a network like we do with computers is coming to some of the things we can do and advantages we can do with data we're going to be able to do with SDI in the future.
Right. So the big benefit, again, is it makes your facility a little bit cleaner, easier to wire up because you're not running cables all over the place, and a little bit more efficient. So you have some cost reductions there. But frankly speaking, one of the biggest benefits actually of doing that is actually a reduction of rack space.
Right.
And when you reduce your rack space requirement, then it allows you just to put more stuff in your racks.
Yes.
And everybody always wants more things, more equipment and whatever.
But also power consumption is becoming a big issue too.
Power consumption is also, of course, a big, so all those things become benefits actually when we move to IP. But then, of course, the other big benefit of IP is the precision time protocol that we use for referencing everything.
That's right.
So you had mentioned, before about the different studios and things. With the precision time protocol, I can feed a reference. For example, what we're doing here at the show, 250 miles away to Culver City in California, referencing all the sources in a stage there, and then bringing them all back here to my display here at the NAB, and I'm plugging them directly in, and everything is synchronous.
So, actually, this is an interesting point. We didn't discuss this before, but going down the IP route is making the ability to do mixing or doing your orchestration in one place and your acquisition in another place. For example, you may be having all your cameras on the racetrack, but your mixing station may be back in the studio.
Exactly. So with IP, you have benefits not only of different video formats that you can intermingle, but you also have the flexibility of moving your studios around.
That's right, yeah.
So you have big cost benefits there if you can keep your production crew in one place.
That's a big cost
now
benefit.
I have a very, very sophisticated control room and whatever, but now I'm connected up to multiple studios around that maybe for sports I have different stadiums I'm going to connect up to. Maybe if it's a broadcaster, I have different stations that I want to connect up with, because my talent is over in that station but my production crew is here, and I don't want to send them all on the road. So there's a lot of different benefits actually of being able to do remote production, and that's all capable with IP.
Well, fantastic. Thank you very much, Dwayne.
Thank you very much.
And thanks, Sony, for bringing forward the world of IP in the production community. Anyway, that's James Gardner at NAB 2016. Bye for now.